What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Oak Grove podcast. We are currently doing a podcast with the Oak Grove youth where we are talking about Lent. Lent is a historic season of the church calendar. It's a time of preparation, a time of recalibration as we prepare for the holiest days of the Christian calendar, celebrating the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Today, we're going to be talking about creation care and how the youth are finding hope and caring for creation. I am here with Vivian Mus. And Vivian, tell us who you are and how you got connected here at Oak Grove.
I'm a sophomore at St. Pius, and I've been here at Oak Grove for most of my life. I went to preschool here, and then I've been in Sunday school and in the youth ever since.
Awesome. And I'm C.J. Lord. I'm one of the youth directors here at Oak Grove, and I have loved getting to know Vivian and all the youth that are so passionate about so many things here at Oak Grove. So Vivian, tell me why creation care is an important topic to you.
Ever since learning about it in school, I've always found it to be important, and I've kind of been amazed at how little other people care about it. During school, I would see, one of the main things that I would see was how much waste we were throwing away. For instance, I went to IHM, and every day we would have, our lunches would come in a styrofoam box, and every single day, all of those styrofoam boxes would get thrown away.
Wow.
And now that I'm at Pius, we have styrofoam cups that we use to get out of the soda machines and things. And every single day, all of those cups are thrown away. And it's sort of just amazing how much waste we produce.
Yeah, waste is a huge deal. And it's almost, you don't even think about it. It's second nature. We've grown accustomed to just using disposable plates, cups, whatever it may be, throwing away any leftover food, cooking way too much, right? It's everywhere.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the youth ministry here at Oak Grove, what are some things that you've seen that the youth are doing to address caring for creation, reducing waste, etc.?
One of the things we have recently started doing is composting. And so we have a zero waste policy for most of our youth group meals, which means we compost a lot of the food that we have. And then we wash our own plates and dishes, and it cuts down on the waste that we're producing.
Awesome. Yeah, that was a big thing, not only for waste, absolutely, but we had probably 150 Corel plates and bowls and the little saucers and real cups. And yet we would spend money week in and week out on disposables. And they just sat on the shelves collecting dust. Now we use our own plates and cups, and we have dish teams that wash everything, and it's awesome. Even though not everybody loves to wash dishes, one of the things that I keep reminding everybody is you washing that dish not only is helping the environment, but it also is making a clean plate for Vivian or Mary Lawton or Chase or Reese or somebody else to eat off of next week, which kind of gets me through it, especially if we wait until Monday to wash dishes and it's just me by myself. But yeah, so when you think theologically about creation care, you know, how God speaks to the issue at hand, what are some of the things that come to your mind?
Well, in Sunday school the other week, we were talking about how in the Bible, a lot of people read the creation story to be humans have dominion over the earth, and how we switched that language and interpreted it as humans should be stewards of the earth, which gives it more of we have a duty to take care of the earth. It's not just something, do we want to do it or do we not want to do it? It's we have to do it.
Absolutely. God forming Adam and Eve in the garden and giving them this beautiful creation, but also requires them to care for the plants and the animals. And perhaps, at least I think, that responsibility has been passed on to us. I think it's all over Scripture. We were just talking about how we treat creation reflects what we believe about its creator. One of the examples I like to use at youth group, right? If you have this beautiful painting that's by some famous artist, you treat that with a lot of respect, partly because of who the artist is. And even parents, have you ever walked into a friend's kitchen and you just see all of their little siblings' artwork on the fridge, and it's like they can't throw any of it away?
Yeah.
Not because it's the prettiest artwork, but because the creator of that artwork was somebody really important in their life. In your own personal experience, what are some ways that you are engaging creation care, you would say?
So at my house, we compost, and then we also recycle. We recycle glass. So I've always watched my parents doing these things, and so it's been instilled in me from a young age. And so now I just pay more attention to if I'm recycling this or what I can do, putting things in the trash, not littering and stuff like that.
Another organization, shameless plug for my friends at Gipple, is Georgia Interfaith Power and Light. And so we've partnered with them on a few things. Right now, they have a river cleanup coming up in May that I'm hoping some of our youth will participate in. They also do a lot of education and awareness. So they've been coming to Sunday school the past few weeks. And is there anything that you specifically want to share from those sessions?
The main thing is they really value our opinions and what we have to say. And they have a lot of faith in the youth that we can make difference. Like, for example, the youth are given a $1,000 grant. And I think that just shows a lot to how much they trust us to make decisions, which is what I've taken away from the sessions.
That's really cool. They did a survey that first week. This was actually Dr. Corey who did the survey. She's a professor at Candler School of Theology, where it was just a Richter scale, 1 to 10, rank how confident you are on this topic or that topic. And what we heard from our youth that was super inspiring and meaningful to me was that most of our youth feel very confident that our church listens to them and takes their opinions seriously. And I don't know that that is the case at the church worldwide. And so it's just beautiful to see the faith that y'all have in this community here. And then also, many of you feel like you are willing to advocate for creation care and that it would be taken seriously by the church at large. And right now, we're just in the process of discerning what that looks like. What is our best way to move forward, whether it's solar panels or EV chargers or all the many ways. But that actually brings me to a practical application. What are some things that our listeners can do to take steps towards caring for creation?
With Gipple, we've talked about doing things, either advocating for climate change or using the church as a beacon. So people look at the church and be like, oh, they're doing this. Let me do this in my life. Or using the church as a space of learning and teaching the congregation how to do things. So whatever route we take, it would require that the congregation is involved. And so I think getting involved in the steps that we're doing can lead to growth in your own life, such as composting at youth has led me to now think about, oh, what am I throwing in the trash? What am I throwing in the compost at my house? And so I would say that just taking the things that you learn at church and applying them in your own home can make a big difference. And
yeah, that's awesome. And it's that way, honestly, for everything that we're doing at church, right? I think church is this beautiful little microcosm of what the world can be, or at least church should be that way, right? Maybe not always, but there are also many ways that we can move forward, and they're all good ways. And so sometimes the struggle is trying to figure out which good thing to do, right? You said advocacy, making sure that the bills that are being passed are going to take care of the creation. Personal changes, whether it's reducing your own consumption or thinking about how you are protecting the earth, doing education so that way other people can learn, or being the beacon, like you said, like the church being the beacon of hope for the community. We've been talking a lot about practical application, and sometimes it seems like a lot of work. You know, people don't want to pay a subscription for compost now. They live in an apartment, so they can't, you know, just have a big giant compost heap outside. Maybe their apartment complex doesn't recycle, mine doesn't. What are some ways that people can partner with the youth in making these changes?
I would say that they can just be open to our ideas and really participate in the things that we're going to put out to the church. The more participation that we have, the more I think that our ideas can like stretch over the church. And just knowing that our ideas are important and valid and that they should be listened to.
Absolutely. Joining in the conversation is the first step, right? Whether you are all for all of this or this sounds a little suspicious to you, go talk to somebody. Break down that barrier between you and whatever's preventing you from engaging in the climate care discussion. But I wanted to get back to where God is in all of this. For me, and this might just be personal, but composting and recycling and my own consumption is deeply spiritual in the sense that it's reminding me of the interconnectedness of all things, right? I believe in plenty. I don't believe that God would create a world and then not fill the world with enough to supply for every person who exists.
Yeah.
And yet there are plenty of folks who go without. And so my own energy use, my own food waste, all of these things remind me of where I am in this larger ecosystem, if you will, that God has created and invited us to participate in caring for.
I agree. And I also think that a big part of why I'm so, like, this is so important to me is because climate change has a big impact on people in poverty and people around the world. And so I think if you want to help those people, you also have to be working for climate change and engaged in that, because it's not just about helping the earth, but it's also about helping other people.
Absolutely.
And so to be stewards of God's creation is to be stewards of the people around us too.
Yeah. On the radio the other day, it was something about production of like stable crops in certain areas. And as temperatures are changing across the world, certain regions that once were able to produce mangoes or rice or whatever it may be, all of a sudden are not as suitable as they once were. And that isn't just less rice or less mangoes, but it's also less jobs.
Yes.
And those people and their livelihoods are absolutely dependent on it.
Yeah.
And then with like weather patterns too, right? I mean, it was a crazy hurricane season this past year, and the winter storms that we had were pretty ridiculous. Hopefully it is a 1 in 10 years type of winter. There absolutely could be implications from a changing climate.
Yeah.
When there is extreme weather, underprivileged folks who are experiencing homelessness are often the hardest hit.
Yeah.
So this is not just about the plants and the animals.
Mm-hmm.
This is about our siblings, just people.
Yeah.
I will say, though, Vivian, as easy as it can be to get cynical about all of this and just think, oh, well, there's not going to be enough that we can do to change anything, or, other people need to change. I've already done my part. I think what has cured my cynicism is hope. And I'm seeing a ton of hope in our young people who are passionate about composting and willing and ready to wash dishes and empty out the compost bags and do all of these things, partner with Gipple, do river cleanups because they care about their environment. Where are you seeing hope when it comes to our attitude on caring for creation?
I think a big portion of it is just the willingness to be involved from our youth. We've been talking about this with Gipple for a while in our high school youth group, and a lot of those kids can drive. They can make their own decisions about whether they want to come to Sunday school or not. And I think it's the fact that we constantly are having a group of them show up every single week, knowing that they're going to be talking about the environment with Gipple and things like that. And they're willing to come and they want to come and engage in that conversation. And also when sometimes we'll split into small groups during youth and we'll talk about more specific issues with climate change, and everyone just has so many ideas. And so that's giving me a lot of hope that people are enthusiastic about what we can do to help the earth. Yeah.
That's awesome. What would you say your hope for the future is when it comes to climate change?
I would hope that we keep this in the forefront of our minds, even when we aren't each week going to discussions and talking about it. And we carry this throughout our lives. When the youth grow up, they go to college, they get jobs, they just keep the earth in consideration. And I also hope that what we're doing with the youth can touch a lot more people outside of the youth and can change their lives too.
Absolutely. That all people can see the interconnectedness between relationships with others, relationships with God, relationship with God's creation, and just be more mindful. I think it's beautiful. I think it has the chance to alter the current trajectory of the earth. Well, thank you, Vivian. For our listeners out there, this is our second to last episode of the Lenten podcast. Next week, we will be having a special guest who was on our international mission trip come and join us about how they're serving and partnering with churches, not just in our own community, but Christians across the world, and how they're finding hope and partnering with Christians all over. I hope you'll tune in. Thank you for listening. Just a little bit more about our Lent and Holy Week opportunities next week, being Holy Week on Thursday, April 17th. We'll have a communion service for Maundy Thursday at 7 p.m. And then on Friday, we'll do a Tenebrae service at 7 p.m. for Good Friday. And finally, Easter on April 20th. We'll have 4 worship services that morning, with a sunrise service in the Memorial Garden, 8:30 and 11 o'clock traditional worship services, and a 10:45 modern experience. I hope you'll join us both here in person at the church for Holy Week, online in worship, and continue tuning in to this podcast. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.